thing you discover in Africa is that infrastructure is highly variable. Electricity at Addis Ababa, last time I was there, go off for 2 hours in the capital city in a top hotel, 2 hours a day. In half of Ghana, half the population has no electricity, so the idea of having data is pretty meaningless for people with no electricity, unless you have some of the more adventurous folks that cycle around with car battery on the back of the bike and recharge smartphones, because the phone coverage may not be so bad. But then you have to think about a very different world of what is the infrastructure for data in that kind of world, and that might lead to very innovative ways of using data for policy. It may in fact give you better inclusion, locality of data and so on. You need to drive what you're doing from an actual requirement, an actual use case. So what do you need? For example, in Rwanda, when we're looking at digital identity, people said the really useful thing would be able to take all of my cattle, my livestock as a farmer, and prove that I own it. And the cattle have chips in, and could you connect that data to somebody's smartphone so they have an app, so when they sell the cows, they can transfer ownership. And then you would have an interesting thing where you could monitor things like the health of livestock and farming and different farming methods, combine that with, so this would be a classic data for policy kind of thing, but it'd be driven by an actual requirement we have from people on the ground in a particular location. And you go somewhere else, the requirement will be completely different. And so, you need to look at each of these use cases. And at no point does one see anything looking like the giant tech companies' offerings of AI and data centers from America or Northern Europe. They just don't offer any solutions that are sensible in a sustainable way, affordable way. But in the cases that we've seen, the interesting things don't require that. They can be done in other ways, which are sustainable and innovative and affordable, this is a win-win. And we could imagine tech and policy people developing systems in Africa. I can point at the M-Pesa currency, for example, used in 5 or 6 countries, I think now in East Africa, which leapfrogged what we have in the north. It's more useful, it's low overhead payment systems, it's secure, it works really, really easily. You can buy a cup of tea from your phone. They did that way before we did anything with contactless payment. And you could see the same thing happening for many other systems. So where the infrastructure is dealt with appropriately may lead to completely new ways of doing things, which would also lead to evidence and data going into how we make decisions about what happens in a country in terms of resourcing things, or what happens in entire regions. So of course, Africa is the African Union, and there are also regional connections between countries, and the information about things like cross-border trade, payment systems and so on could be combined in ways that would support people, not be surveillance and distrusted and so on. So all kinds of interesting things can happen there in a completely different way, which will benefit everyone on the planet in the long run.